Paul Pogba failed a drug test. He was banned, written off, and publicly judged. Then months later, he was cleared, and now he's playing professional football again. That sounds like a contradiction. It isn't. At the time of the test, Paul Pogba was not an unknown name. He was a World Cup winner, one of the most expensive transfers in football history, a player whose career had been debated almost as much as it had been celebrated. But this was not the peak version of Pogba. He was playing for Juventus, having returned after leaving Manchester United. The move was supposed to be a reset, familiar surroundings, fewer distractions, a chance to revive a career that had stalled. Instead, injuries disrupted his availability almost immediately. His minutes were managed carefully. He was not central to the team's plans. By the time the test occurred, Pogba wasn't fighting for headlines. He was fighting for relevance. That context matters, because the test didn't interrupt a peak. It interrupted a comeback. The test itself was not taken during a match. It was after a game against Udinese. It was a routine, the kind professional footballers undergo repeatedly throughout a season. Pogba was on the bench that day. When the result came back positive, the process triggered automatically. No interpretation, no discretion, just enforcement. The substance detected in Pogba's sample was DHEA, short for dehydroepiandrosterone. DHEA is a hormone precursor. It can occur naturally in the body. It can also be ingested through supplements. Under anti-doping regulations, DHEA is prohibited because it can raise testosterone levels, even if it is not itself testosterone. That distinction is important, because anti-doping rules do not require proof of intent or proof of performance enhancement, only presence. DHEA sits in one of the most problematic categories in enforcement. It exists naturally. It appears in supplements, and it carries automatic consequences. Supplements are not regulated like medications. Labels are not guarantees. Contamination warnings are common. Athletes are repeatedly warned that supplements carry risk and are advised to avoid them or use only vetted products. But responsibility still falls on the athlete. If a prohibited substance appears in a sample, the system does not ask why first. It asks whether it's there. This is where strict liability applies. Strict liability means this: if a banned substance is found in your system, you are responsible. It does not matter how it got there. It does not matter who provided it. It does not matter whether it was intentional. This rule exists to make enforcement possible. Without it, every case would collapse into intent debates and medical ambiguity. But strict liability also creates outcomes that feel unfair or contradictory to the public, because responsibility and wrongdoing are not always the same thing. After the positive result, Pogba was provisionally suspended. This is standard procedure. A provisional suspension removes the player from competition immediately and applies before any final ruling. This phase can last months. During a provisional suspension, a player exists in professional limbo. They cannot play. They may be restricted from team training. Clubs cannot plan around them. There are no updates, no explanations, no timelines fans can follow. That silence fuels speculation. Media fills the gap. Supporters assume the worst. Clubs plan as if the player may never return. Even before a final ruling, damage accumulates, because football does not wait for clarity. In early 2024, Pogba received a 4-year ban from Italy's anti-doping authority. That number changed everything. A 4-year ban is the harshest standard sanction in anti-doping. In football terms, it's a timeline eraser. 4 years covers an entire World Cup cycle, multiple transfer windows, and the remaining prime years of most players in their 30s. For clubs, a 4-year ban is effectively final. Teams do not plan around returns that far away. Contracts are reassessed. Squads are rebuilt. This is why public reaction hardened instantly, not because of the substance, but because of the length. Most football bans are measured in months. A year is serious. 4 years signals an ending. At that point, appeal becomes the only rational option. Anti-doping cases do not end with the first sanction. They move into a review phase. Appeals do not re-argue headlines. They examine proportionality. Pogba appealed the decision to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Appeals focus on questions fans rarely hear discussed: the concentration of the substance, whether performance enhancement was plausible, consistency with precedent, whether punishment fits circumstance. Appeal panels do not ask whether a substance was present. They ask whether the sanction was appropriate. This is why appeal outcomes often feel lenient. They are not exonerations. They are adjustments. In Pogba's case, the appeal did not deny the test result. It challenged whether a 4-year ban reflected the severity and context of the violation. The original sanction was overturned. The ban was reduced. Pogba is playing again because the system allows differentiation between presence and enhancement, responsibility and intent, punishment and proportionality. When Pogba became eligible to play again, it did not mean a return to status. It meant a return to permission. Eligibility restores the right to compete. It does not restore trust or certainty. By the time he returned, teams had moved on, squads had changed, expectations were lower. Post-ban returns are cautious, shorter contracts, fewer guarantees, every appearance provisional. What happened here follows a familiar pattern. A routine test, a severe initial sanction, public judgment hardens early. Then an appeal adjusts the outcome. Authorities punish presence first and assess context later. The system is consistent. The communication is not. That gap is why fans experience contradiction every time. This story isn't about defending Paul Pogba, and it's not about condemning him. It's about understanding how modern enforcement works. A single test can stop a career instantly, but it doesn't always end it permanently, because procedure comes first. Clarity comes later. Paul Pogba failed a drug test. He was banned. He appealed. And now he's playing again. All of that can be true. What never disappears is the space between those events. That space is where doubt lives, where reputations linger unfinished, where stories never fully resolve. The system moves on. The memory doesn't. Thanks a lot for watching. If you liked this video, consider smashing the subscribe button. Also, right here is another video we believe you'll enjoy.